Penguin Random House Audio presents The Year of Our Love by Caterina Bonvicini. Translated from the Italian by Anthony Sugar. Read for you by Edoardo Ballerini. Part 1. 1975 to 1984. 1. The Beretta. Every day we went off to nursery school together, and Olivia's grandfather would swing by to pick us up in his armored, bulletproof car. We both carried identical straw lunch baskets. My mother filled mine with mortadella sandwiches and bottles of pear juice. Mamma would tell us not to drink right from the bottle, that it was bad manners. So drink right from the bottle we invariably did, once we were sure no one was watching. "Swear that you'll never tell a soul?" "I swear." The drive to nursery school was an adventure. First of all, because her grandfather drove us in person, and he was one fast driver. Then because there was a bullet hole in the windshield of his armor-plated Fiat Ritmo, with a spidery array of cracks radiating out across the glass. "Gianni, who shot you?" We weren't allowed to call him Nonno. He said that the word made him feel old. In 1979 he was 61 years old, still an attractive man who delighted in casting his smoldering spell in all directions. The family was untouchable, as were his weaknesses. He'd take his granddaughter to nursery school with the same devotion he spent waylaying and seducing women. "You always ask the same question. What a pain. I've told you before, these aren't stories for little kids." And his eyes would crinkle into a smile. Of course, he couldn't explain to us who the Red Brigades were. There was a pistol in the car's glove compartment. There it lay, tucked in amidst the registration and insurance, next to a ballpoint pen and a glasses case. We'd see it any time he reached to get something out. "You are not to touch it, ever," he'd say. "It's a real gun. It's a Beretta." There we'd sit, breathless, never taking our eyes off the dashboard for so much as a second. And we'd reel off a string of stupid questions, always the same ones. For instance, we'd asked what would happen if the glove compartment popped open by accident and the pistol fell out. Who knows, because he would have to slam on the brakes. "Not a thing," Gianni would reply. "The safety is on." I was dying to get my hands on that Beretta. At least once. But Olivia would pinch my arm. "Watch out, Valerio. It fires real bullets." When we pulled up in front of the nursery school gates, the excitement subsided. All the other children would leap toward the driver's seat, wedging themselves between the front seats to hug their mother or father goodbye, practically sprawled atop the stick shift. Not us, because there was that Beretta in the glove compartment. We'd open the door, get out carefully, and walk around cautiously. "Ciao, Gianni," and then we'd plant a kiss on his face. He'd muss up my hair and give his granddaughter a bite. Olivia would rub her cheek dry with one hand. "No, not the saliva," she would whine. Her grandfather would just laugh back. "You little monkey, it's a seal bite. It's good luck." Then he'd turn serious again. "I'll be back to pick you up at 1 o'clock. Remember, this is important. Wait for me inside the gate." At first we attended a public nursery school. Only then there was an incident, and our parents decided to send us to a nursery school run by nuns. Or to be exact, it was Olivia's parents who made the decision. My mother, who had always been a social climber, was happy to go along. She was happy to have me mingling with high society, even if I was only 4. My father, an atheist and a communist, not quite so much. But he had no real backbone. He wasn't capable of standing up for himself, especially when it came to his wife. The incident occurred one evening in May 1979. Giulio and Elena, Olivia's parents, had invited a dozen friends over, and my mother was serving caviar canapes. They were all in the living room, drinking champagne as they waited for dinner. I was at home with Papa, probably watching the children's show Carosello. We lived downstairs, because my father was not the only Morganti family's gardener, but also the villa's caretaker. Given her preferences, Olivia would have been watching Carosello with me, but when her parents had friends over, she wasn't allowed to venture downstairs and come over to our place. She had to greet the guests and be shown off. She let herself be dressed up like a doll, patiently shaking hands with everyone, and even curtsying to the elderly matrons. Then she was free to play, but in the living room, because she was on stage and was expected to stay there. So there she sat, on the carpet, by the fireplace. She was playing alone with a plastic toy train, bothering no one. "Boom!" she said. The grown-ups watched her, beguiled, and kept repeating the same litany of customary comments. "Why, what a lovely little girl! Why, what stunning dark eyes! Why, what cute little pigtails!" Olivia, impassive, indifferent to everyone in the room, kept saying, "Boom! Boom!" After a bit, a young lady with long hair hanging down to her bottom got up off the sofa, crossed the living room with a glass of champagne in one hand, and sat down beside her, crossing her legs. "What game are you playing, sweetheart?" Olivia looked up, stared at her for a moment, then answered with a friendly smile, "I'm planting bombs under trains." Silence. That was hardly an appropriate game to play, especially in that particular period. The mayhem attendant on the Italicus train bombing was seared into recent memory, still rife with telling details. The tunnel brightly lit, the mountain shaking, the sudden roar, and passenger car number 5 enveloped in flames. Everyone could picture the twisted metal of the Rome-Brenner Pass Express. My mother stood there, frozen, no longer handing around canapes, no longer collecting dirty glasses. Olivia's nanny was immediately summoned, but she had no answers to give. "Cecilia, who could have taught her to play such a game?" "I don't know, signora. I really don't know." Olivia was sent straight to bed. But in the living room a grim cloud of disquiet was less easily dispelled. Everyone got to their feet, as if to convey a need to move elsewhere, preferably to the dining room. My mother rushed straight into the kitchen. "Dinner!" she shouted to the other household help. "The signora says that we're to serve dinner immediately. Get the pasta started now." In the dining room the discussion was blazing. Some were of the opinion that the little girl must have overheard some mention of the train, possibly on the evening news. Olivia's parents kept shaking their heads. Impossible. In August 1974, she hadn't even been born yet. Others, tired by now of the obligation to take their conversations seriously, ventured to crack sarcastic jokes. "Maybe there are terrorists who send their children to the same nursery school." But the joke landed with a thud, and nobody laughed. Luckily, the roast was brought to the table at that point, and with the roast came another topic of discussion, one that unfortunately cut close to the bone. Namely, whether it was better to send your children to public or private schools. Nearly everyone came down on the side of the latter. "The way things are these days," they tutted. "I'd rather have an ignorant son than a dead one." It wasn't clear how ignorance was supposed to stave off death, as someone pointed out, but that question was soon forgotten. "Such a tender roast. Delicious meat, no doubt about it." And so the following day my parents were summoned upstairs. Signor Morganti, the engineer, and his lady, Signora Elena, invited them into the drawing-room, just like the guests from the previous evening. They sat down and smoked a cigarette together sociably. "Would you care for one of mine, Sonia?" For the first time my mother was allowed to sample one of the thin white cigarettes that Elena always seemed to have clamped between her lips, smearing the filter with her lipstick. My mother kept gazing at her forefinger and middle finger, like a little girl wearing new shoes who can't take her eyes off her feet. In reality, though, each drag brought little or no satisfaction, because those cigarettes were so much lighter than hers. Still, they were much better looking, no doubt about it, far prettier. "We'll pay Valerio's tuition, too. The children are so fond of each other. It would be a shame to separate them." My father listened without looking up. After all, my mother had promptly accepted on both their behalves. "The nuns, why, of course. Right, Guido?" On Saturday afternoons we'd go to the Giardini Margherita with the nanny and 2 members of the police protection detail. We'd learn to ride bikes with the police. The police were there to help us when we fell over onto the asphalt. They were there to run after us children when we pedaled awkwardly, there to get out a screwdriver and tighten our training wheels as needed. They could load the bicycles into the trunk of the car when
Sample complete. Ready to continue?